Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Well, as hard as it is to believe, we are now at the tail end of 2024. If you've been tuning into the channel for a while now, then you likely know that can mean only one thing. It's time for another quarterly installment of Dumbest Criminals, our compilation series where we take a look at some of the dumbest criminals and crime stories that we've covered so far in a given year on Crimes of the Week. One thing to keep in mind is that these segments have not been edited since they appeared in their respective lists, so minor details and things like specific charges may have been updated since we first covered them. Also, if you like these videos, be sure to let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to look out for another one of these videos later in the week, covering stories exclusively from the international edition of our show. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Authorities in Pinellas County, Florida say that a local woman spent the night in jail last week and is now facing misdemeanor charges after a dispute over a takeout order turned her Saturday pizza night into a Saturday pizza fight. According to reports, the whole thing started around 1:30 a.m. on October 5th when the woman in question, 22-year-old Ricky Hawley, ordered from her local Domino's pizza in the city of St. Petersburg. It appears the delivery went as planned. However, the problem started when Holly apparently sat down to enjoy her food, only to realize the pie she had ordered was cold and uncut. Now, admittedly, I think this would make most people angry, but according to reports, it pushed Holly over the edge. She drove straight down to the store, where she proceeded to go into a full-blown rage on the staff there. One which allegedly included her breaking one of the store's phones and throwing the allegedly cold and uncut pizza. When police were called to the scene, Holly was arrested and charged with criminal mischief. After spending the night in jail, she was released, though has been ordered to stay away from her local Domino's.
Federal authorities in Vermont say that a 41-year-old Chinese woman is facing a lengthy prison sentence as well as a hefty fine this week after she pleaded guilty to trying to smuggle more than 24 of a protected species of turtle across the U.S.-Canada border in quite the ridiculous fashion. According to court documents, the whole thing started sometime on the morning of June 28, 2024, when the woman in question, 41-year-old Wan Ying, was caught red-handed as she carried out the plot. After renting an Airbnb near the town of Canaan, Vermont, she reportedly blew up an inflatable boat on the shore of Lake Wallace, which she then loaded up with 29 eastern box turtles. She apparently planned to meet up and hand off the reptiles to her husband and one other person, who had started paddling out into the middle of the lake from the Canadian side in Quebec. Ng was arrested by Border Patrol agents, who found the turtles individually wrapped in socks. Her husband and the other alleged accomplice, meanwhile, were captured by officers with the RCMP. Based on communications between Ng and her husband, which were found on her phone, authorities established that she was planning to smuggle the protected turtles back into Canada, where she was living at the time, before taking them back to her native Hong Kong. Once there, she was hoping to sell them on the lucrative Chinese black market, where they normally sell for around $1,000 each. Ng pleaded guilty to a smuggling charge on October 11th and is now awaiting sentencing. According to reports, she is looking at a maximum of up to 10 years in prison, as well as a fine of up to $250,000.
If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, then you might remember that back in July of this year, we brought you a strange story out of the community of Leoni, Florida. It was here, during a vehicle search following a traffic stop, that police found a not-so-conspicuously hidden cache of narcotics. The bag was literally labeled "bag of drugs." Now, at the time, that was one of the most ridiculous things that we'd come across in a while. However, as you know, these stories tend to have a way of one-upping themselves. Case in point, our final installment on today's list, and our latest nominee for our very facetious Hall of Criminal Geniuses. According to reports, it all started on October 9th when a Portland police officer pulled over 35-year-old Reginald Reynolds and 37-year-old Mia Begenstos, who were traveling in a 1994 Ford Taurus. After finding more than a generous amount of probable cause, the officer decided to conduct a vehicle search. That search turned up this little beauty. As I'm sure you've already guessed by the image, that bag definitely was a bag full of drugs. In fact, it contained about half a pound of meth. As a result, Reynolds and Begenstos were arrested and are now facing a number of felony counts, most of which are related to drug trafficking. Now, I should say, as stupid as it is to get cute like this with a felony quantity of methamphetamine, Reynolds and Bagenstus would by no means have gotten away scot-free without the very obviously labeled bag of drugs. They were also apparently carrying a large amount of cash on their persons, as well as a handgun, drug paraphernalia, and, oh yeah, a bunch more meth. Additionally, the reason they were pulled over in the first place is that the car they were driving was allegedly stolen. Possession of a stolen vehicle is one of the many charges they are now facing. Authorities in Cincinnati, Ohio say that an elderly woman is facing charges this week after she allegedly shot and killed a man while she claims they were fooling around with a gun. The whole thing began shortly before 8 p.m. on October 20th, when police received a 911 call from 77-year-old Kathleen Geiger. Geiger stated that someone had been shot and that they needed help right away. When authorities arrived at the scene, a residence on the 2700 block of East Tower Drive, they found the victim, 58-year-old Arthur Osborne. He had sustained a single gunshot wound somewhere between his hip and groin area and was pronounced dead at the scene. Upon being asked what had happened, Geiger reportedly said that she had accidentally shot Arthur. She claimed that while they were, quote, engaged in harmless banter, Arthur had, quote, jokingly requested that she shoot him. She stated that she didn't think her gun was loaded, so she pulled the trigger. Geiger was arrested and has now been charged with reckless homicide. In a statement following the incident, prosecutors said that Geiger's claim that she didn't think the gun was loaded was beside the point. They argued at her arraignment, quote, everyone who possesses a firearm has a responsibility to do it responsibly. You never point a firearm at anything and pull the trigger unless you intend to destroy it. The defendant pointed a firearm at someone and pulled the trigger, resulting in their death. There also appears to be some question as to how long it was before Geiger called for help between when the fatal shot was fired and when Arthur actually died. In sources we came across, police stated that she eventually provided medical aid and made the emergency call, suggesting that there was some delay. How this factors into the case, though, remains to be seen. An Alabama man apparently decided to add a splash of color to what was already a bizarre situation this week after he allegedly threatened to blow up a retail store, only to be taken into custody with what appeared to be marker all over his face. The whole thing began sometime shortly before 10 a.m. on October 19th, when police were called to an Ulta beauty store at a shopping plaza in the city of Opelika. Dispatchers were told that an employee at the business was out front when they overheard something alarming. A man who was standing right outside the doors, later identified as 42-year-old Timothy Vincent Lincoln, was reportedly on the phone and was making disturbing threats. At one point, he allegedly stated, quote, I'm going to blow this shit up, causing the employee to run back inside and warn her coworkers. As employees and customers scrambled out to safety, police arrived and placed Lincoln under arrest. When they did, he was apparently covered in what appeared to be colorful marker, which he had drawn on his face and beard with. It's not clear when he did this or where he got the materials that he used. While most of the circumstances surrounding the situation currently remain a mystery, what we do have is a picture of Lincoln's strange mugshot. The 42-year-old is now charged with making a terroristic threat in the first degree. If convicted, he reportedly faces up to 10 years in prison. He has also been banned from Ulta beauty stores for life. Authorities in Polk County, Florida say that a 29-year-old Uber Eats driver has been arrested and is facing charges this week, more than a month after an unhinged incident in which she allegedly blatantly stole from a customer and then attacked them when they tried to get her to stop. The whole thing started shortly before midnight on September 12th, when the victim in question, identified only as a woman from the city of Davenport, got a late-night hankering for some fast food. After placing an order on Uber Eats, she patiently waited for her food to arrive, only to be met with quite the unwelcome situation. Upon seeing the driver pull up outside, the victim went out to collect her order when she realized the driver was rooting through the fast food bag. The driver, later identified as Alexandra Acosta Aguilar, was allegedly stealing items out of the bag to keep for herself. When the victim realized this, she attempted to confront Aguilar. However, things quickly went off the rails. The 29-year-old allegedly began yelling, screaming, and spitting on her. Things got even stranger when the victim realized that the food wasn't all that Aguilar had taken. It turned out that she was also in the process of stealing hundreds of dollars worth of fall decorations from her front yard as well. After loading a bunch of these items, including several plaster pumpkins, into her vehicle, Aguilar allegedly drove off. Of course, being that Aguilar was tied to the order through the Uber app, she wasn't exactly difficult to find. After the victim called police, officers paid her a visit at her Winter Garden home and placed her under arrest. She is now facing 1 count of burglary with assault and 1 count of grand theft from a dwelling greater than $100.
An alleged Connecticut tire thief ironically ended up needing his own new set of wheels this week after he was allegedly caught red-handed and tried to flee only to drive right into a police cruiser. The whole thing reportedly began shortly after 2 a.m. on November 5th when police in the city of Farmington found 26-year-old Bryant Serrano trying to steal several tires off of vehicles in the parking lot of a Hampton Inn on Colt Highway. Upon being caught, Serrano ran to his unregistered Toyota Avalon, which was equipped with used plates, and began trying to escape. Unfortunately for him, he didn't make it very far. Not long after leaving the parking lot, he crashed straight into a cruiser being driven by a police officer who was on their way to the scene. Though Serrano's car was disabled, he apparently still wasn't quite ready to give up. He took off on foot into a nearby forest and tried to evade capture by hiding in the trees. This did not work though, as police called in for backup from other law enforcement in the area and quickly set up a perimeter. They then used a drone and a canine team to figure out the 26-year-old exact position and placed him under arrest. At the time of this recording, Serrano is facing a number of charges, including third-degree larceny, interfering with an officer, reckless driving, failure to renew registration, illegal operation of a motor vehicle without minimum insurance, improper use of marker plates, illegal operation of a motor vehicle under suspension, engaging police in a pursuit, and evading responsibility. Authorities in Louisiana's St. Landry Parish say that a young mother is facing charges this week after she allegedly left her child unattended on a major road late at night, then attempted to falsely report the situation as a kidnapping to cover up what had really happened. The whole thing began at around 1 a.m. on November 5th when police in the city of Eunice received a call from 24-year-old Artasia Vigs. Vigs stated that she had been in the middle of changing a flat tire near U.S. Route 190 and Industrial Road when her young son had been abducted. She claimed several people had pulled up in an older model truck and had taken off with the boy. When officers came out to investigate, they were relieved to learn that the boy had been located. He had been found by members of the public in the parking lot of a local medical clinic and had some abrasions to his knees but was otherwise unharmed. The thing was, though, the boy had a very different explanation for what had happened that night. He told officers his mom, quote, ran him over and left him at the side of the road. Based on this pretty significant contradiction, authorities questioned the boy and Vigs further. That's when the 24-year-old apparently revealed the truth. Vigs explained that her son had never been kidnapped. Instead, she had lost him. They had been arguing in the car and things had gotten so heated that she pulled over. She said that when this happened, her son jumped out of the car before it came to a stop, which is how he'd been injured. Still, she said she didn't try to go after him and instead let him run off into the night until she eventually lost sight of him. After that, she had driven away and made the call about the kidnapping. Following this admission, Vigs was arrested. She is now charged with cruelty to juveniles, child desertion, and false swearing for purpose of violating public health of safety. Representatives from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement say that a 64-year-old man is facing charges this week after he allegedly tried to pose as an undercover officer in order to avoid a background check. The whole thing apparently started recently when the FDLE was contacted by a real estate agency who said that they were trying to confirm an unusual claim that they had received. They said that a man, 64-year-old William Dennis Milstead, had applied to lease a residential property from them. However, he was refusing to complete the normal background check that's part of the process. The reason he was giving was that he was an FDLE agent working, quote, off-grid, and that undergoing the background check could blow his cover. That wasn't all, though. The real estate agency said that Milstead had submitted a document to them that he claimed he was from the FDLA, explaining all of this. After taking one look at the document, real FDLE officers could see that it was comically fake. The thing was riddled with spelling and grammatical errors, and Milstead had signed it as coming from the FDLA's, quote, off-grid command unit, which does not appear to be a real thing. The fraudulent letter went on to say that Milstead's employment with the FDLA began in October of 2006, and that he is, quote, 3 years shy of reaching his 20th year retirement. The most ridiculous part of the letter, though, was when Milstead allegedly wrote, quote, I can certify that William Dennis Milstead is a very reputable individual and would be a great compliment and an outstanding citizen to any community that he may reside in. This is funny not only because the letter itself was a con, but because the reason Milstead apparently wanted to avoid the background check in the first place was his 13 prior felony arrests. Perhaps unsurprisingly, he has also been charged with impersonating an officer twice before, once in 2002 and once in 2016. Milstead was booked on November 13th and is now facing new charges of falsely impersonating a police officer, making a false statement to obtain property, and using a two-way communication device to commit a felony.
I don't know what it is with schemes involving fake bear attacks recently, but strangely, we've got another one for you this week, and it might just be the dumbest thing we've come across yet. Representatives from the California Department of Insurance say that 4 people have been arrested and are facing fraud charges after they were accused of submitting multiple fraudulent insurance claims in relation to what they claimed were instances of animal-related damage to several high-end vehicles. The whole thing apparently began in late January of 2024, when one of the insurance companies in question received what they believed was a suspicious claim involving a 2010 Rolls-Royce Ghost. The claim alleged that a bear had gotten inside the vehicle while it was parked overnight in the community of Lake Arrowhead, and that significant damage had been done to the interior. When questioned about the situation, the 4 people responsible sent over a video as proof. That's when the insurance company decided to contact police. Here, take a look. Maybe you can spot why. You can probably tell right away what's going on, but just in case you can't, here's some help. That is not, in fact, a bear scratching up the interior of a luxury vehicle. It's a person in a bear costume, and not an especially convincing one at that. It gets even more obvious when you see the supposed scratch marks on the inside of the car. I don't know about you, but I've never heard of an animal that leaves behind exactly evenly spaced scratch marks that all happen to be identical and in a straight line. Despite how ridiculous this whole thing was, authorities still had to bring in the proper experts from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to officially call bullshit. They easily did this, and also found the bear suit the suspects allegedly used in a property right next to where all of this happened. Even so, the suspects successfully ripped off at least 2 other insurance companies before they were finally caught. According to reports, there were at least 2 other claims involving different Mercedes vehicles, with the men filing nearly $142,000 worth of total claims. The suspects have now been identified as 26-year-old Ruben Tamrazian, 39-year-old Ararat Chirkinian, 32-year-old Vahe Murad Kanyan, and 39-year-old Alfia Zuckerman. All 4 are now charged with insurance fraud and conspiracy. Unfortunately, though, we still don't have the answer to perhaps the most pressing question in this case. Which one of these suspects was actually in the bear costume? Authorities in the city of Cape Coral, Florida say that a 22-year-old theft suspect made their jobs pretty easy for them this week after it's alleged that she recently shoplifted a bunch of items from a retail store, then got caught after showing off the goods on social media. The whole thing began on November 20th when Cape Coral police received a call from employees at a local Target store. The staff members explained that they had video of a recent theft that had taken place there that they wanted them to investigate. When officers arrived, they were shown surveillance footage from the store, which had been recorded at the end of October. In the video, a woman could be seen stealing a bunch of items after scanning them at the self-checkout area with a false barcode. The woman had made off with 16 items from the store's home and clothing departments, the total value of which was just over $500. After verifying everything, police put up the female suspect's photo on their social media page, hoping that a member of the public would be able to identify her. As it happened, they didn't have to wait for long. According to reports, within a day of that post, an anonymous caller reached out to authorities, informing them the woman in question was a TikTok influencer, 22-year-old Marlena Velez. Velez normally makes videos about her life as a mother of 2 kids, but one of her videos in particular stood out. The video was apparently posted on the same day as the Target theft and showed Velez making a trip to the store and picking out items that day. Not only were these some of the same items she is now accused of stealing, she was wearing the same outfit as the female suspect in the store surveillance video. After realizing that Velez posted evidence of the crime to her nearly 300,000 followers, police placed her under arrest. In a statement this week, a spokesperson for the department stated, quote, "She essentially incriminated herself." While Velez has now been charged with petty theft of more than $100 but less than $750, apparently this is not her first foray into retail theft. Last summer, she was arrested after a similar self-checkout related scheme at Walmart and ended up pleading no contest to stealing $63 worth of kitchen items. She was ordered to complete an anti-theft course and serve 6 months of probation, a sentence which apparently ended just last month. Velez's first brush with the law reportedly happened when she was 17, when she reportedly stole one of her friend's cars and totaled it while they were in high school. During an interview with the friend this week, the victim told reporters that Velez never paid for the damages to her vehicle, and it seemed like she never felt any remorse. She also said of Velez, quote, "She's been living recklessly, flaunting a lifestyle that doesn't match her actions."
The public got their first look at some pretty wild police body cam footage this week, video which allegedly shows a recent interaction between an officer and a wanted man. It's a situation that started out somewhat amusing, but which quickly escalated to a potentially deadly incident. The whole thing unfolded on the afternoon of September 19th, when Jackson County Sheriff's Deputy Robert Henderson tried to take 41-year-old James Mitchell Kerr into custody. Kerr was the subject of an arrest warrant after he violated the conditions of his parole by failing to pay child support. The body cam footage shows Deputy Henderson arriving at a property in Leoni Township that day. After being led through to the back, he encounters Kerr, who is operating a riding lawnmower. The deputy tries to explain why he's there, but before he can do so, Kerr begins driving off. The deputy chases Kerr a short distance while he attempts to flee on the lawnmower, ignoring several commands. It's only after Kerr pulls out his taser and threatens to use it that he finally stops. At this point, the situation appears to be a stupid, though mostly harmless interaction. That is until Kerr goes to the side of the lawnmower after getting up. Within a split second, he's grabbed a gun and can be seen turning to point it at the deputy. Luckily, Henderson was faster and deployed the taser. Not only was Kerr hit, the subsequent shock he received apparently caused him to shoot himself with his own weapon in the hand. Deputy Henderson immediately called for backup, and Kerr was finally arrested shortly thereafter. In addition to the legal troubles Kerr was already facing, authorities say that he has since been charged with assault with intent to murder, carrying a firearm in the commission of a felony, and resisting arrest. In a statement after the body cam footage was released this week, Jackson County Sheriff Gary Chouette stated in part, quote, "This incident underscores how rapidly a seemingly routine encounter can escalate and the potential dangers deputies face daily. Thankfully, the deputy was unharmed, and the suspect did not sustain serious injuries." At the time of this recording, Kerr remains in custody.
A Texas woman is facing charges in connection with an incident as bizarre as it was dangerous after she reportedly led police on a drunken car chase last week, one that only ended after she whipped around a busy parking lot several times in broad daylight. The whole thing reportedly began at around 2 p.m. on November 14th, when a state trooper spotted a woman driving recklessly down Interstate 35 in a white Toyota SUV. The trooper attempted to stop the female driver for a traffic violation. However, rather than pulling over, she sped off. The driver, later identified as 37-year-old Audrey Marie Schneider, continued through Comal and Bexar counties, ramming into multiple vehicles along the way. Despite this, pursuing officers weren't able to stop her before she turned into the parking lot of San Antonio's Alamo Quarry Market. As you might imagine, the parking lot was crowded with people and other vehicles since it was the middle of the day, though none of this appeared to faze Schneider. Instead, she kept trying to evade police, driving through the parking lot at a high rate of speed. Footage of the incident, captured by stunned onlookers, shows Schneider as she continually attempts to outmaneuver officers, with seemingly no regard for the people around her. Even after being cornered at one point, she slams into other vehicles and police patrol cars, providing enough room to escape. Perhaps unsurprisingly, in the footage she can be seen holding what appears to be an alcoholic beverage in her hands. The chase only came to an end after Schneider jumped out of her SUV barefoot and ran into a salon in the plaza. She was finally arrested here, though not before allegedly attacking the officer who placed her in handcuffs. Even after being restrained, Schneider's bizarre behavior continued. In footage, she can be seen laughing and smiling while being walked to a patrol car. She also apparently attempted to interact with the crowd of witnesses who had gathered, yelling things such as, quote, "I'm back, bitches," and "Santa is coming." Thankfully, it appears no one was injured during the incident, though that seems to be due more to dumb luck than anything else. Schneider is now facing a number of charges, including evading arrest, aggravated assault on a public servant, and driving while intoxicated with an open container of alcohol in her vehicle. According to reports, this is not the 37-year-old's first rodeo, so to speak, when it comes to drunk driving offenses. In 2017, she was charged with obstruction of a highway while intoxicated, though this was apparently dismissed after she was granted deferred adjudication. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.